The answer is that not the case. We are still at the very bottom of that S curve. We're going through some rocky periods. I call it plant-based 1.0. Great learnings, great experiences. There's lots of opportunities to evolve that. Evolve that with better tasting solutions, more nutritious, and still more sustainable and regenerative for the planet.
Welcome to this week's episode of Leaders on a Mission, where I'm joined by inspiring leaders driven by the impact of creating a healthy and sustainable world. And I'm joined by Scott May. Now, Scott is an innovator with a real vision and a passion for how the food system will meet the needs of the population's estimated 10 billion people, I think it is, by 2050. 2019, Scott founded MISTA. I didn't know this before, Scott, but meaning tasty morsel in Sanskrit, so you learn something every day, as founded really as a unique innovation hub, really bringing together startups and corporates to find ways to collaborate and work together to innovate on creating healthy and sustainable products. And Scott, I've known you for a few years now, actually before you set up MISTA, so really appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thanks, Simon. Pleasure to be here. And I can't wait to talk about my favorite subject. So thank you very much.
So tell me though, just as an early upbringing, you look like you studied food and beverage, did a degree in food and beverage and spent your career in food and beverage. Give me some context. Where did the passion, where did it resonate from?
What resonated with me was science. And so I started out actually at university in chemical engineering, and I love the engineering and the science part of it. But to be honest, at the time, going to work for a big petroleum company just didn't seem like it fit my passion. So I discovered the whole world of food science, and it really captured my attention because, number one, I could apply engineering, I could apply science and technology, but also the fact that food is such an important part of human survival, human evolution. And, at the time, I didn't really understand the planetary impacts of our food system, because this was a really long time ago when I graduated. That was really what got me interested into the whole food space.
And I would imagine, looking at your career, right? I mean, or certainly the role that you did before founding MISTA, for instance, right? It was really interesting. It was a global innovation role working for Givaudan, who are, one of the world's largest, I suppose, producer of flavors and fragrances, as it were. And I'm wondering, what was a global innovation role for Givaudan? What does that involve?
When I took on that role, it didn't really exist. So that's the beauty. I love to create things from scratch. Within Givaudan, a 250-year-old Swiss company, the leader in flavors and fragrances, we had a great track record of engaging with external universities. But what was happening in the world at the time was the fact that our largest customers, the largest CPG players in the world, were struggling. They were struggling for market share. There was an article written a long time ago. It was called Death by a Thousand Cuts. So it was basically talking about startups in the food and beverage world that were taking little tiny chunks out of CPG companies all over. And so at that time, we didn't really have a way, Givaudan didn't have a way to engage with these early stage companies and really understand what was happening. So that was the impetus of starting what we call our front-end innovation program. So meaning, being at the very front end of technology, understanding the emerging things that were going to potentially disrupt not only Givaudan, but the food system in total, and making sure that Givaudan was leading in that whole space, leading in understanding the changes that were happening.
And I'm curious, what led to MISTA? I mean, it was a great idea. Tell me back to, how it all came to kind of fruition, as it were.
Yeah. So as part of this front-end innovation journey that we were on, part of it was to take a deep dive into the ecosystems that existed about 10 years ago. And one of those ecosystems that was, I think, very strong was in the West Coast, in the Bay Area. So there was a lot of things emerging in biotechnology. I mean, there in Boston was another big hub, but there was a lot of emerging things coming out of the West Coast. In biotechnology, I was connected very early on to IndieBio, and I really loved what IndieBio was doing in terms of identifying early stage companies and supporting them through their accelerator and their investment program. So, I saw that as a model that we wanted to potentially explore. And then, of course, the universities that exist there, UC Berkeley, Stanford, UC Davis, Cal Poly, all of them very strong in agriculture, in food science, in technology. And so as I just embedded myself into that ecosystem, one thing became very apparent is that everyone was trying to do the same thing. Everyone was exploring the same space. Everyone was trying to understand it. And so here we were, you're visiting IndieBio and you have, some other scout from a CPG company, another scout from another ingredient company. And it's like, this is crazy. Why are we all doing this separately? Why don't we think about creating something where together we could explore and experience some of these new technologies? So that was really the aha moment. It was like, wow, what if we created something that very different to explore these new things? And the other thing, Simon, that was really important was, we were part of other ecosystems that were emerging. There was Terra, the accelerator, and some other things that were bringing corporates together. But the one thing that was missing was the ability to actually roll up our sleeves and work in the lab. So you had these other entities and they would bring corporates together and we would sit in a room and we would listen to pitches from startups, and then everyone would go their separate way, and the startups would do their thing and they would just hope that they could partner with a company like Givaudan or something, and it never worked. And so that was the other thing that we learned is like, okay, and it was really a key learning from IndieBio, that IndieBio was different. They had a lab. They brought these startups in, they put them in the lab, and they just let them loose. And, magic happened. And so that was the other thing that we wanted to do is, okay, let's do something different. Givaudan specializes in integrating solutions, right? And taking all these different ingredients, putting them together, making them taste really great and perform well. And so let's do something similar at MISTA. So let's create an actual physical laboratory where we could bring multiple corporates into our laboratory, multiple startups into our laboratory, and watch the sparks fly. And so, I think that's really what differentiated us and still differentiates us today, is this ability to not just talk about potential futures, but actually create those potential futures in a lab alongside multiple companies, multiple scientists from different companies, multiple disciplines, really, that whole full stack of IP and capabilities.
Yeah, no, great. I'm going to come back to the Mr. bit in a sec. I just want to bring it back to what I said earlier when I introed you, and it was like, the food system. I know you're a very passionate advocate for this connected food system. But what is wrong with our food system right now, and where does it need to get to in order for us to prosper?
The purpose of MISTA is to accelerate this transformation of the food system to meet the needs of the future. We see an abundant future that nourishes people and planet. So if you think about the challenges that we have today, it is exactly around that nourishing people and planet. So today, our food system is failing most individuals. You look at the health aspects of the majority of people, especially in the Western civilizations, rampant levels of obesity, diabetes, lots of health challenges that are caused from our food system. How we got to this food system, of course, it made sense. We needed to bring a lot of calories to a lot of people, and we were able to do that. The problem is that we just kept going with that same model of those calories, and we no longer need just dumping calories into people. We need the right calories the right nutrition, and then coupled with that, of course, is the health of the planet. So the way in which we get to our food is literally destroying the planet. And so we need to think differently about how we access the food, how we grow our food, how we process our food, and how we package our food. So that's really the challenges that we have in the current food system. And we have to find solutions that can nourish both people and planet.
Yeah, I suppose the way that food has been generally produced, there's not been huge amounts of kind of change within that, right? It's been, agricultural practices, these are pretty standard, and they've been around for many, many years, right? Then I'm thinking about some of those challenges we're talking about, for instance, the resources like the feeding of cattle, for instance, and then the emissions of cattle. Is that what we're kind of talking about when we're thinking about some of the challenges?
Yes, it's in the agricultural practices, both in terms of the animals, the way in which animals are raised, but also in the feed of those animals and the growing practices. And so, essentially, the soil that is required to have a healthy food system has been depleted over a number of years because of these practices. And again, looking back, it likely had made some sense along, decades ago for doing the things that we started to do. But the fact is, we never evolved, we never changed, and now we're at a point that is really at a crisis for the soil health, and the fact that we've, eliminated a lot of forests in order to have grazing land for the animals. And so every aspect you look at, there's a need for change and disruption.
Yeah, absolutely. And where do you think we are on that journey? Because it's been, we've spoken about it a lot over the last, 5 years or 6 years. You've seen the real advent and growth of the vegan revolution, as it were, and then the drop off of that, as it were. So where are we on this transformational journey, would you say?
Like any transformation, it's not linear. There's been some good articles written about the S-curve adoption. Any new technology goes through this S-curve. And I think people thought that we were just going to go from where we were to where we need to be in this perfectly straight line. It was just, rocket acceleration, that Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods were going to, convert everyone into flexitarians. And the answer is that not the case. We are still at the very bottom of that S-curve. And, we're going through some rocky periods. I call it plant-based 1.0, great learnings, great experiences. But there's lots of opportunities to evolve that with better tasting solutions, more nutritious, and still more sustainable and regenerative for the planet. I love what Beyond Meat and Impossible have done to help in the conversation, to help consumers think about what they're eating differently. I mean, that in of itself is huge. Did we get to where we need to be? No. But like anything, it's the first phase. And so now we have the opportunity to build on that. It's not like we're going to throw all that out. We've learned a lot. We understand a lot more. Technologies continue to emerge that can help us improve on some of those solutions. We're seeing things like mycelium, biomass produced through bacteria and other fermentation sources to produce proteins, fats and oils, fibers. They're not plant-based and they're not animal-based. They're something different. And so I think that's the next phase of where we're going. And I think that will help us provide solutions that consumers absolutely love in taste, in nutrition, and in sustainability, and affordability, right? That's the other piece. Is what we saw was not only, I think, people maybe didn't love some of the solutions that were there, but they were also more expensive than, let's say, the traditional food that they had been purchasing. And when there's a downturn in the economy and people need to tighten their belt, they're going to be looking at, hey, am I going to pay $5 for that, or can I get something for half that price? And that's the other impact that we've seen. So affordability is a key piece of this. If we can't find solutions that are affordable for all, we're not going to make a change.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, cost of living crisis certainly didn't help.
Absolutely.
Do you think, like with your experience, curious, with consumers, they've obviously dipped their toe, they've tried, by and large, as you said, there wasn't that many great solutions on the marketplace, so they've gone back to their traditional habits, as it were. How much more difficult is it to re-engage them and get them to try again, and to get them to adopt? And is that one of the real challenges now they've stepped away, as it were?
It's a great question, Simon, and I don't think we know yet. Of course, there is a concern that when you have subpar products in the market and a consumer tries one of those products and they get turned off, and you have something that's better later, will they come back to it? Are they going to be willing to dip their toe into it again? I just don't know. Hopefully, yes. And I think we're also seeing, obviously, a pretty significant shift in demographics in the new generation that is emerging. They have, I think, a better sense of planetary needs, not just their needs, but also consciously, eating and consciously selecting those products that are better for them and better for the planet.
Yeah.
So there's no silver bullet. There is no, hopefully with all of that together, with sort of the younger generation understanding the challenges that we face, providing them with solutions that are better tasting, more nutritious, making sure that it is affordable, and demonstrating to them that these choices will benefit themselves, their families, and the planet altogether. All of that packaged up, I think, is where we need to go. It isn't just a single solution.
Yeah. No, great. Thank you for that. Tell me a little bit about the progress Mista's made in terms of, over the last few years and, I suppose where you've got to on the journey.
MISTA itself is an entity that has evolved and will continue to evolve. So, one of the things that we talk about at MISTA and we've created is a model. It's called regenerative innovation. And for us, regenerative innovation simply means, first of all, you need the ability or the desire to explore the unknown, to explore new things, to move out of what is known and what is in the past into, really understanding what's possible. The next step in our regenerative innovation model is around experiences. We believe that in order to evolve and change, you have to experience things in a different way. And so that's coming back to why MISTA built a R&D facility, is because we needed to bring those experiences to the scientists and the chefs in the food system so that they could see and experience firsthand how these things are working. It's what IndieBio has done too with their lab, right? These people get experiences and they get it very fast. And with these new experiences, you are literally rewiring the brain. A new experience will help you make new connections. And it could be connections that you've seen today. It could be connections that you saw 2 years ago. But those experiences are really what triggers the new neural networks in your brain. And then the next step in our regenerative innovation model is reflection. So it's great to have a new experience, but now you have to reflect upon that experience and go, okay, what does that mean? How does that impact what I thought I knew from the past? Maybe even what the decision I took yesterday is going to be disrupted because of my new experience from today. And again, this is the challenges of large corporations, is that they don't want to change. They don't want to reflect. And they made a decision yesterday. They want to live with that for a long period of time. But at MISTA, we want to make sure that we are experiencing and reflecting literally every single day. There is no decision that's sacred. If we made a decision yesterday based on what we knew and, something new comes up today, we're willing to absolutely throw it away and start over. Then the next step in our regenerative innovation model is about integration. And this is the hardest part. It's how do you take what you've learned and integrate it into either, what you know or what your team is doing or what the company is doing or what the system is doing. So this integration isn't just, it's multiple dimensions. And then finally, it's not only multiple dimensions, but it's integration across multiple timelines as well. So most companies, corporates, think about Horizon 1, right? They're thinking about, what do I need to launch in the next 6 to 12 months? Maybe I'm thinking 18 months ahead, but beyond that, it's so far out there. I'm just worried about the next quarter, in delivering my objectives. And so, this regenerative innovation model, going through that, the experience, the reflection, the integration, helps us evolve in a way that we believe is better and faster than other ways. And so not only are we helping large corporations think about this regenerative innovation model, at MISTA itself, we practice this every day. Early on, when we started this whole journey, we knew that we wanted to bring these groups together. We didn't really understand what the outcome was going to be. But 7 years later, we've seen a lot of startups, but we've had about 100 startups come through the MISTA program. We've had 9 or 10 corporate members as part of MISTA. And now our next iteration of this journey is to think about taking this experience and learnings that we've had over these 7 years and begin to start thinking about spinning up companies in a new way. And so the next evolution of MISTA will likely be in the venture studio space. So taking this ability to identify these new ingredients and technologies, which is great, but then I believe our right of way is the ability to integrate the existing IP that exists with large companies and the new and emerging IP that exists in startups and emerging companies, bringing that together in a way that can be very disruptive and move a lot faster than a traditional large corporate can. That's sort of, where our journey of MISTA and where we think we're going next with this venture studio.
Interesting. So just clarify the difference between, say, the venture studio idea, and we'll come back to that in a bit, and the model currently at the moment, as it were.
The model currently is a membership model. So MISTA is essentially a not-for-profit, so to speak. We are fully owned by Givaudan. So of course, Givaudan is for-profit. But the way MISTA operates is we need to get enough membership revenue to cover our costs.
Right. Okay.
So cover our cost of our facility in San Francisco and the resources that we have at MISTA. And that's all we look for. If we get in additional money, we plow it right back into additional resources for MISTA. So we're just always looking for sort of that cash neutral or profit neutral space. Yeah. Givaudan's not looking at this as a, hey, this is a money-making exercise. It is very strategic in the way they view this. They don't want to lose money, which they're not. And so we have been cash neutral for the past several years. Which has been great, but the benefit they get is very strategic. And so also all of our members see this as very strategic, right? They are paying a membership fee to get access to these early stage technologies, but even more so, they're paying a membership fee because they can understand how these things will integrate in a different way. Because Givaudan is a flavor company, but it's still important for Givaudan to understand the protein technologies that are emerging, the fats and oil technologies that are emerging. They may never sell a fat and oil, but they need to understand how those fats and oils will work with their flavors in the future. And that's what MISTA brings to the table. So that's kind of the past model is call it this understanding, helping people see what's possible, helping them think strategically. And the next phase now is applying that, is with this and our venture studio. It's called Studio 8. And so that next phase is now applying that. So how do we create even more value by taking this understanding of integrating solutions and actually creating something out of that?
Yeah, no, great. Thank you for explaining. Tell me, do you see with the future then with the spinning the venture studio? Do you see it new products, new brands having to sit outside the main corporate organization, for instance, in order to be successful? I get the parts of the ecosystem, like you've got some of the technology and the early stage kind of companies, and then you've got some of the incumbent large players and bringing together, with new IP and old IP. But with these new companies which are spun out, where do they sit? Do they sit outside a corporate entity? Are they kind of allowed to grow, from a startup perspective?
Yeah, exactly. The idea would be that they are spun out separately from anything. They are funded from venture funding, and they sit outside of any corporate entity. And actually, that's the benefit, because they don't have to. If a corporate spins this up, of course, what ends up happening is that they end up conforming to whatever that corporate construct and paradigm and norms are, and it's hard. And so by putting it outside, we can integrate this IP, keep it outside for a period of time. Now, eventually, the idea is that we'll get a lot of traction, and a big CPG company may just sit back and go, wow, this is really interesting. I want to see what happens. And then once they see what happens, not only are they learning about how these new ingredients are performing in the market, but they're also seeing how that brand is doing and resonating with consumers. And they might want to acquire that and bring that back in-house at a later stage.
Yeah.
So, it's a true venture model, but yes, definitely sitting outside of any corporate structure for a period.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing, when you've explained the model, it's really interesting because I speak to a lot of early stage companies, scientifically founding companies that don't always know how to communicate or how to engage with the market. Brilliant technology, not quite sure how to apply it. It seems that with what you're doing, you're enabling that a lot more, and you're giving that opportunity for them to quickly understand how to apply that technology in a commercial kind of settings.
Absolutely. You have it exactly right. And that's the challenge we've seen. We've seen amazing scientists, amazing ideas, amazing technologies. But first of all, they have no clue about how long it takes to get that ingredient or technology into the market, especially if it's a new technology and they need to scale it, like fermentation, for example. Here, they're like, hey, I just produced a kilo. Oh, that's excellent. By the end of the year, I'm going to be at 500 kilos. And, it's great. But when you're a large corporate entity, first of all, it's like, well, when can you make the first multiple truckloads? And can you guarantee that those are all the same? And can, on and on and on, right? Because that's how they work. That's their mindset, which makes sense. And so by spinning up a new entity, that new entity can scale at the same pace as a new ingredient in the technology. It matches nicely as both of them are growing, which large corporates just can't do. I mean, they're just not set up to do it that way. And so in our model, we can enable this new way of helping great ideas scale at the same pace as potentially a new brand or a new idea for a consumer. And everyone can watch and learn what happens along that journey.
No, great. And tell me though, with you come across, as you said, 100 startups, as it were. If you were giving some advice for any early stage founder of a food technology company in 2024, your sage advice be going into this year?
My advice would be to find an ecosystem where you can get support, because we've learned it is nearly impossible to go at it on your own. Even with great funding, like you said before, it's hard to find your way into this complex food system. So having support from entities like MISTA or the Kitchen in Israel or some of these others that exist are really important. So I would suggest, as an early stage, and mostly I'm talking about ingredient technology companies here, not early stage CPG, but early stage ingredient technology companies, would be to find an ecosystem that can support you in your journey. Make sure that you understand the need that you're filling, that it's not just technology for technology's sake, but there's a real underlying need that you're filling or you're supplying. And know that it may evolve. Using the regenerative innovation model as you yourself are going through this journey of your company, it may evolve. And we've seen it, many times. We have one startup that spun out of UC Davis, really cool technology. And first it's called Optimized Foods. They're doing a really cool koji fermentation, and it makes these little balls. And first they were kind of focused more on the protein space, but then we held a growth hack around fats and oils, and they pivoted into using these koji fermentation balls to absorb the oil. And they discovered that it works really well in alternative meat applications. And so here is this company that thought they were heading down the protein space, and they pivoted into fats, and they can actually do both. But that's the kind of thing that I would also suggest, is that as early stage companies, you have to be open to pivoting and leveraging your know-how and technology into potentially other areas that you may not have thought of. And then I guess the other one is know that it's going to be a pretty challenging journey. And if you believe that you're just going to nail this in a short period of time, it is going to take years of hard work to get to the end state. So that's the other.
It really is. I've got a lot of empathy for the founders, out there. It's a tough journey. It's a really, really tough journey. And let me just ask you, because you come across a lot of them. Like, mental health wise, this is all about resilience and it's all about coping with stuff. But, generally speaking, it's got to take its toll. I mean, it really is such a challenge to make ends meet, to finance your company, to pay your staff, to pay yourself, cost of living, putting everything into it. I don't know if I could do it, to be honest.
The possibility of burnout is definitely there because of all of those pieces that you just mentioned. The challenge to raise the funds. And of course, once you raise the funds, then the expectations on you from that VC are tremendous, or the VCs are tremendous, let alone all of those things that you pointed out for the individual, for the team, and for the company. And mental health is definitely something that needs to be addressed. It's interesting because my wife is in this space. She is an executive coach, and she is also helping companies, both big and small, adapt to the challenges that we face today. The need to change very quickly, the challenge on our energetic selves, and the chance for burnout. So I bring her in a lot because we do have founders that do struggle with this whole aspect. In fact, I would suggest as your next podcast should be in this space, and I'm happy to introduce you to my wife and all the work that she's doing there. There's this really cool program and app called Source, SORCE, and it is used to help every day you measure your heart rate variability to help you understand where you are from an energetic standpoint. And you can do it for individuals, teams, and companies, and it's really cool. But this is an area that is often overlooked, not really talked about, but hugely important. I mean, at the corporate level as well as the startup level, and it's probably even more challenging at the startup level because many of these folks don't have resources to go to. They don't have people that they can talk to about these things. So that is the other thing we do at MISTA is by creating a community of like-minded individuals. It gives the ability not only to share and talk about technologies and, that kind of thing, but literally at the human energetic level, checking in on each other. How are you doing? Just a shoulder to cry on sometimes is so important. And so we definitely provide that within the MISTA network as well.
No, great. Thank you for that. And final question, 2024, give me a couple of predictions. What's going to happen this year? in the market?
I don't like the word predicting because we can't predict the future. We can certainly use regenerative innovation to create the future. So what I believe will come to fruition in terms of we're working to create is I do believe that we will see more solutions that move us in the direction, as I stated early on, in tastier, healthier, more sustainable solutions with the likes of mycelium, with the likes of ingredients produced by precision fermentation. So despite the challenges in the marketplace, I do see these ingredients taking their rightful place as key enablers of future solutions. So that's really exciting for me in 24. I see a continued challenge in the finance or in the funding space. So companies who already have been funded are going to have to buckle down, just as much as they did in 23, if not more. So capital is still going to be quite tight. That's what I see in 24 coming our way.
Thank you very much. And it's been a great conversation. We could chat all day about this. I know it's a subject close to your heart, and super appreciate you coming on and seeing you today. So thank you very much. And I'll see you at the MISTA party in a few weeks' time.
Excellent. Thanks, Simon. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity. And we'll see you soon. Take care.